Hi, I'm Manna Hill. I'm from Gig Media, and I'm joined by George, who's also from
Hello.
Gig Media. We both have a very special guest joining us today, who is Jess. Who she is Miss Gresham, and she's also the UK ambassador for Sepsis.
Hi everyone.
So, how are you doing, Jess?
I'm really good, thank you. Thank you for inviting me on.
Thank you for joining us. I will start off I'll start us off by my first question. What is sepsis, and can you tell us in a way that everyone will understand?
Of course I can. So sepsis is the body's overreaction to an infection. So what I mean by that is basically your body begins to fight the infection. However, it goes into overdrive and starts to fight your internal organs. Therefore, it can fatally lead to amputations. It can lead to obviously death, but it is a very severe infection.
Oh
Oh
God,
wow.
I've never heard of it, but it's so severe. Wait, okay, so you said about infections. What do you
Mhm.
mean? Like, what type of infections?
Okay, so let me give you a prime example. When you get a paper cut,
Mm-hmm.
if you don't clean that
Yeah.
um, or leave an open wound and don't clean it, it's going to become infected. Or you've got a chest infection, commonly, colds, flus, urine infections, any infection that you can think of can turn and develop into sepsis.
Oh wow, so it's more common than what we would expect.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh wow. I did not realise that. So you learn something new every day, even during lockdown.
Exactly.
Um,
Absolutely.
what? Yeah. What was your personal experience with sepsis?
So my personal experience takes us back to 2016. I was 21 years old, and obviously at 21 you think that you're superhuman. Nothing can affect you, and I was suffering with a common chest infection. I'm very prone to them anyway, but this time was substantially different. I left it, and I ended up developing severe nosebleeds. I was having up to 20 nosebleeds a day. And again,
Wow.
I was working in the hospitality trade and I loved working. I was a workaholic. So I worked myself into the ground, although I was poorly, and substantially ended up in hospital with
Mm-hmm.
sepsis because I left my chest infection to fester, and I ended up severely ill where my mum sadly could have potentially lost me. But that's why we're here, and that's why we're here to raise awareness about it.
Mm-hmm. That is
Oh,
so severe. Like, I hope you're doing okay from that.
Yeah, I'm much better now, thank you.
That's good.
oh, that is yeah, and really good on you. That is, well done for sort of speaking out about it, which is really good and a really brave thing to do.
Thank
And
you.
and how long was the recovery process for you, and how long may it vary?
So recovery process, it just varies on the situation. Um, if someone loses a limb, their recovery process is going to be a lot longer than
Mm-hmm.
someone that's developed it through a chest infection. However, it can be weeks, months, or even years. Personally, I don't feel like there is a recovery time
Mm-hmm.
because everyone suffers with post-sepsis syndrome, which is the aftermath of sepsis. Um, and that can last years. And truth be known, is there a recovery time? Very good question.
Mm-hmm. Oh wow. So is it like a mental impact as well then, I'm gonna assume?
Yes, definitely. So one of the symptoms of post-sepsis syndrome is mental health issues,
Mm-hmm.
memory loss,
Oh,
fatigue. And there's a huge long list of post-sepsis syndrome symptoms. And someone that's fit and healthy, you could have sepsis and it might not be severe enough where you're going to lose your limbs.
mm-hmm.
However, you could suffer severely with post-sepsis syndrome, mental health issues, the list goes on. So yeah, it is really severe.
Yeah. I'm actually really shocked. Like, honestly, I didn't know, like, I had no idea what sepsis was, and it is really severe. Like, people should really know about this.
Definitely.
hmm Okay, so I had a question. So, you spoke about like a chest like you got the infection because of the chest, right? What other main signs are there?
Okay, so the main symptoms of sepsis are shivering and
Mhm.
confusion. You've then got no urine output all day. So if you go all day without going to the toilet, that is a key sign and symptom. High blood pressure, heart rate, really high temperature. You've also got fatigue and mottled skin, and also discoloration. So they're saying you're as white as a ghost.
Yeah.
Truly, you're as white as a ghost. That is what discoloration is.
hmm What mottled hands? Like, what does that mean?
Pardon?
Like you said, mottled hands.
Mottled skin.
Yeah,
So,
skin, my bad.
if I give you a visual, so with meningitis, back in the day they had a campaign, and we all know about a rash, don't we, with meningitis? So if you press it, it doesn't disappear. Okay, so that is a key symptom of sepsis as well.
Okay.
So skin is a rash, and commonly sepsis is misdiagnosed for meningitis because the signs and the symptoms are very similar.
Oh wow, okay. That is like these symptoms are actually so common. Like it'll be surprising, honestly.
Yeah, just like
Yeah,
having a cold or the flu.
exactly.
Now, I've seen a lot about the news, and I hate to bring COVID into this conversation, and I've seen sort of a lot around on your Facebook and stuff like that. And speaking about symptoms, does COVID does any symptoms, are there any similar symptoms, or is there any aftermath of COVID that can sort of strike, or what's the stuff around COVID and sepsis? Sorry, that's really general.
No, that's okay. So I understand obviously not wanting to bring it in. However, I'm glad that you have, because it's really important. Now, the signs and the symptoms for sepsis and COVID are very similar. And I'm working on another project that kind of links the two together. Now, if we put it in terms of COVID is a virus, so it's attacking your body. And there was a report, it's called the Lancet report, and it was a study done in Wuhan at the beginning of the year. And that study, it came out that a very high percentage of those, the end result was sepsis. So there was admitted with COVID, and the end result was sepsis. Now,
Oh, wow.
the reason being because your body's got a virus, and it's your immune system's trying to get rid of it. Your body's fighting the infection, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Now, for some people, it doesn't happen, and your body starts to go into overdrive, as I said, what sepsis is, and it starts to fight your internal organs, and you go into septic shock. And given that case, you get put into intensive care, ICU. So there is a lot of links between COVID and sepsis, and prominently in the news we're seeing post-COVID. So the aftermath of COVID, people are suffering with fatigue, people are suffering with post symptoms, and you know, I'm pretty sure you'll be able to link that to what I've just said with post sepsis.
Yeah.
So yes, there is a lot of links there, but the one thing I want to stress is, as much as COVID is so important right now, because it's the key thing on our minds, is to also be aware of sepsis and the signs and the symptoms. Okay, because they're so similar, but it's also very important to maybe just have that question on your mind. And if you're talking to 111 or your GP or somebody in a hospital, just say, are you sure this isn't sepsis? So that's the key question to ask here. All right, because they're very similar.
So how deadly is it, and like, is there a cure?
Okay, so obviously sepsis isn't a disease, Okay, so there isn't a vaccination for it, there isn't a cure. So there is ways of preventing it. So sepsis is the largest global preventable killer in the world. Okay, so 11 million people die every year globally. So if we talk about just here in the UK, I'm going to give you a visual here. Okay, I want you to visualize it. Imagine a Premier League football stadium that holds 48,000 people. For every seat, that represents one death from sepsis every year. So we lose 48,000 people here in the UK alone every year.
That is unbelievable.
That's actually like, wow. Like, I'm actually speechless.
Yeah, and it's preventable. So yes, it's something that we need to raise awareness about, because as I say, it's preventable. How can we prevent it? I'm pretty sure you're going to ask me how shortly.
Yeah, I was just going to say that.
Yeah, but I'll let you ask me the questions.
Okay. So how can you prevent it itself?
Okay, so sepsis is preventable via hygiene.
Okay,
so good hygiene, clean equipment. So if you're a doctor, you're a nurse, clean equipment. So you've also got vaccinations. And what I mean by vaccinations is, if we're looking at third world countries with the likes of malaria, if they're not vaccinated, it's going to cause sepsis, isn't it? Because they're going to get a virus, and it's going to turn into sepsis. So vaccinations are another way of preventing it. So I've said good hygiene, prevention, and the main one is awareness, public and also public and also professional awareness. Now, we don't have any global or national campaigns for sepsis. We've got no government funding. So the only awareness that we have that can prevent the loss of life is all through the likes of myself and you guys to talk about it, and also through the UK Sepsis Trust. That's all we've got. But the one way to prevent it is to raise awareness about it and to make sure people know about it.
That's okay. So it's basically basic hygiene, would you say?
Yeah, so basic hygiene, and also making sure that if you feel like you're poorly, know the signs and the symptoms, but to be seen quickly. So with sepsis, it's so important that it's caught quickly, so it doesn't develop into septic shock and you're put in ICU. So that's why time is of the essence. They say 12 hours is that key block. So if you're not seen and administered with antibiotics within a time frame, it could turn severe. So knowing the signs, knowing the symptoms, and being checked within the correct time frame.
Okay, wow. Like, honestly, 12 hours isn't a lot of time, especially if someone like has no idea what sepsis is.
Absolutely.
Right, so George, did you have a question?
Yeah, I'm really sorry about that. Sorry, Mum just called dinner, but I'm going to wait in 15 minutes. Sorry about that. So you were saying about the UK Sepsis Trust before I had to run, but you're saying about the UK Sepsis Trust. How did you get into being a UK Sepsis Ambassador, and what does your sort of role include? What do you have to do? And yeah.
Okay, so for the UK Sepsis Trust, I'm their advocate. I'm the ambassador for the World Sepsis Global Organisation. But for the UK Sepsis Trust, it's all about fundraising. It's also about promotions, like I'm doing now. So that's what it comes down to. They kind of use me more for social media. But at the end of the day, it's all about just raising the awareness. So as an advocate for them, I talk at conferences, I speak to the NHS, speak to doctors, so many professionals. But yeah, so it's more about being an advocate for the UK Sepsis Trust and an ambassador for the global charity.
Oh, that sounds absolutely epic. to be a part of something like that.
It sounds hectic.
Yes, yeah. What advice would you give to someone with sepsis?
Are you talking about with sepsis in hospital or thinking that they have it? What do you mean?
Let's say both. Let's say to someone who thinks that they have it, or is in hospital. What advice would you give?
Okay, so my advice to someone that thinks that they have it or thinks that they've got the signs and the symptoms, they know their own body, or you know your own body. You know if you don't feel right. So my one advice to that person or you watching is be your own advocate. Be an advocate for your parent, your child. If you know something isn't right, don't leave it, because as I said earlier, time is of the essence with sepsis. The longer it's left, the more severe it can be. So yeah, be an advocate. And if you're in hospital and you have sepsis and you feel like you're not getting any better, perhaps your care isn't up to a standard that you would expect to be getting. Be an advocate for yourself. If you're in hospital not with sepsis but with another infection and you feel like you're deteriorating, again, be an advocate for yourself. If you have a child in hospital and you think they're just getting worse, they're in the best place possible but they're getting worse, be an advocate for them. And just always ask, could it be sepsis? Because the minute you ask that question, the doctors and nurses are going to begin to start thinking.
Yeah. Okay, so you know how you were like saying about how like you're trying to promote sepsis and all that. Like, why do you think it's not as well known?
I think it comes down to the fact that we have no government funded campaigns. So for example, cancer research, stroke, we all know FAST, fast. So we all know what signs and symptoms to look out for if someone is having a stroke. They are all government funded campaigns. Now, sepsis doesn't have that. All we have here in the UK is the UK Sepsis Trust, and all of their campaigns are funded by fundraising, events, volunteers, and that's all we've got. So I think if we had a government funded campaign, I think public awareness would be a lot more, because you'd have adverts on the TV, you'd have, you know, massive posters everywhere. It would be taught in schools, but sadly that's not the case right now. Hopefully it's something that we can change eventually, because believe me, I think we need it.
Yeah, definitely.
But right now, obviously, the focus is all of our focus is on health, but with COVID at the moment. So I think give it some time, and hopefully the current situation will shine a light on sepsis, and hopefully the government will fund a campaign.
Definitely.
Just just tailing off the back of your answer there, if someone's listening to this and wondering how they can get involved, where would you tell them to go? Would you tell them to go to the UK Trust, UK Sepsis Trust website, or would they tell, you know, what would you tell them to someone who's listening to this and wanting to get involved?
Yeah, so for anyone that does want to get involved, you can reach out to the UK Sepsis Trust. They're extremely friendly, so they're not intimidating at all. Or if you're from Gravesham, or if you're not from Gravesham, you can always contact me. I've got loads of campaigns going, hashtag around the world in 13 days, my helping the volunteers within the homeless community. So there's a lot of things that you guys can get involved with, or set up your own campaign, set up your own fundraiser. And if you get stuck, again, contact the Sepsis Trust or contact myself.
Yeah.
That is, yeah. Do you have any more questions, Manahil?
So I did have a question. So you know how we're speaking about sepsis, like how fast can it kill you if it can kill you?
How fast can it kill you?
Yeah.
So it kind of links back to that 12-hour time frame.
Yeah.
Okay, so if you're not seen and it's left, it is very rapid. Okay. Given there is no time frame, so I can't say it's a 24 hours, I can't say it's a week, because everybody's body is different. Okay.
Yeah.
So your body's very different to mine. My body doesn't really fight infection very well. So for me, going downhill with an infection is very quick.
Yeah.
So my answer to your question is I don't have one, sadly, and that's very rare for me, but I don't have an answer for you.
Oh no. So it mainly does depend on someone's body type and stuff.
Absolutely.
And sorry, just quickly jumping in again. I know this question sounds really muddled. I'm pretty sure they'll be edited to make sure they're in kind of rough order.
Okay.
But I was just wondering, I know that you were saying about sort of the aftermath, and you go and get the sepsis, after you've had it. I've forgotten what you said now. Can you read?
Sepsis syndrome.
There you go. Sepsis syndrome. Sorry. How does it physically damage you in any way except from post-sepsis syndrome? Does your immune system become weaker, or?
Yeah, so really good question. So sepsis can affect you internally. So your immune system. So my immune system's quite weak now, sadly because of it. But also the loss of limbs. So for children, I know a lot of children that have had sepsis, and sadly they've lost their legs or they've lost their arms. I've known people to sadly lose parts of their faces. So the reason for that is because it affects the tissue. Okay, so what happens is the limbs begin to go black, like charcoal.
Oh yeah.
And what happens then is obviously they need to be amputated on if they're not being able to be recovered. And that is the most severe, that's probably the most severe thing that can happen, other than obviously passing away, but is the loss of limbs. Because then you have to change your whole lifestyle. And for a child, if they lose their limbs, they've got a whole life to adjust to, whether it's hands or legs or arms. But again, that all comes down to it being caught in time. So if an infection is caught, it can't develop into sepsis. You're eliminating that end result. Okay?
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Oh yeah, sorry, carry on.
Sorry. So like you said about like young children you've met who've actually had it, so I'm gonna assume there's like no age range. Like, is there like a specific age that you're more prone to get it, or what?
No. So sepsis does not discriminate. Okay. So sepsis can affect a newborn baby. It can affect someone that's 99 years old. Okay, so we've got a full spectrum of people here. And there is also maternal sepsis. So for women that are pregnant, so they then form maternal sepsis. But that's completely something different to talk about. But the answer to your question is it does not discriminate. It can affect anyone. You can be the fittest and most healthiest person, and you can still develop sepsis through an infection.
Oh, okay. That's like, wow, okay. Because I know it has like a lot of similarities with COVID. So that's something that it doesn't have, like, similarity-wise with COVID.
Correct. Yes.
What do you do if you think you do have sepsis?
Act on it. Be an advocate for yourself, okay, and ask, could it be sepsis? That's the one question to take away from this today, is could it be sepsis? The minute you ask that question, you're going to put sepsis into the mind of the professional, and they can then tell you, no, it's not sepsis because reason 1, reason 2, reason 3, and you know then, okay, I can relax, it's not that.
Okay, that's good. So what type of treatment will someone with sepsis receive?
So it just comes down to antibiotics.
Oh,
IV antibiotics, okay? So, and that's why it's preventable,
okay.
because
Okay.
that's what they will administer you with, is antibiotics. So when I was admitted, I was on a concoction of antibiotics. But obviously for people that are in intensive care, there's a wide range of treatments. Obviously, I'm not a doctor. I'm not a professional in that way.
Mhm.
But there is treatments, and they do work very well.
Yeah, okay. Right. So it's basically antibiotics. So something like you can like receive really easily,
Yeah,
if that makes sense. Yeah.
that's it.
Um, I do. Okay, so you don't have to answer this question. Like, if you, it's a personal question, you don't have to answer it.
Okay.
But what effect did it have to your mental health when you had it when you were 21?
Okay. So I'm happy to answer that.
Okay,
So
thank you.
anything you want to ask me, just ask me, okay?
Mhm.
So what happened with me was, let's talk post-sepsis syndrome.
Okay.
I was extremely fatigued. I was chronically fatigued. I changed my job because I couldn't work the long hours anymore. And it was it was just a strain. I was constantly exhausted, even though I wasn't doing anything. Memory loss, short term, it's something that I've spoken about quite publicly, is constantly forgetting things. I went through a phase of walking into a room and I'd walk in and I'd then think, what have I come in here for? Misplacing my phone. There was once that I misplaced my phone,
Mm-hmm.
and I had literally just been on it, and I can't even explain it. Just I didn't know where I put it, and
No.
I now got an Apple Watch so that
Yeah.
I can, if I lose my phone and can't remember where I've put it, then I've always got my watch on me. And then another time, so again linking to memory loss, this one was a little bit more personally affected me, I think,
Yeah.
was I'm on my phone 24/7 with social media and promotions. And one morning I woke up and I couldn't remember the code for my phone to unlock my phone. And that's something that I use every day. How many times a day do you put your code into your phone? Yeah, I wouldn't
A
even be able
lot.
to count. A
Yeah,
lot.
a lot.
And I woke up one morning and I couldn't remember it. And I got so upset, and it really affected me because to this day, I don't know what my code was, but I had to wipe and everything off my phone.
Wow.
Yeah,
But so
and
you
I
still
had
don't
to,
know it.
and
Wow.
I got so, and being 21,
Mm-hmm.
oh, do you know what? I think I was actually 20. When did this happen? This happened last year. So
Wow, like,
I was 23 when
mm-hmm.
this happened. So 2 years after having sepsis, and I was distraught. Because I didn't understand what was going on. How can you forget something like that? So yeah, I think mentally post sepsis syndrome has affected me a little bit more.
Yeah.
But by raising the awareness and talking about it, it definitely helps. I have a journal. I write in a journal every single day
Yeah.
to write everything down in case I forget things. But it's more the case of just, yeah, I think people need to know about post sepsis syndrome. So that's why I'm okay talking about it, because I don't think many people are okay to talk about it. So I think it's important that somebody does.
Yeah, okay. Firstly, I would like to start off with, oh my God, like you're honestly such an amazing person. Like you sit like honestly, you probably hear it from everyone, but that is crazy. Like seriously, that is like if you deep it, honestly, that is really personal. So like honestly, like thank you for sharing that with us. It is,
You're welcome.
it does mean a lot.
You are
Poor
welcome.
blimey, you nearly had me in tears, and I was literally just sitting there going, oh my God, you know, my jaw was dropping. But thank you so much just for opening up about that. But
That's all we've got time for, and thank you.
And thank you so much to our special guest, Jess, for joining us today. It was a real pleasure to have you on our podcast for this episode. I just wanted to say thank you so much for opening up about all of your experiences. And the best thing that I've taken away is what is actually sepsis, because, you know, I know a couple of people that have had it. And obviously I didn't really know what it was, so it's great to have that insight and great to hear your personal experiences. And make sure to subscribe and tune in next week for our next podcast episode. Thank you.